Procrastination, the greatest enemy of productivity. Is it your enemy as well? Do you know how to overcome it? Chapter. Phoenix and I read self-improvement books so that you don't have to, or at least so that you know which ones are worth reading. Of course, you are more than welcome to just learn from my videos directly. In today's episode, I will review the so-called 2-minute rule, a tool to help you combat procrastination from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Atomic Habits is a very interesting book that teaches the reader how to automate their self-improvement. The gist of it is to master the eponymous habits and fill your life with positive habits and eliminate negative habits. In essence, self-improvement based on coding behaviors into your subconsciousness. A major problem with any self-improvement, however, is procrastination. It's too hard or uncomfortable, there are other things to do, you aren't quite sure how to get started, or maybe you just can't be bothered. In the end, you end up not making progress, whether it's about making new habits or anything else. And yes, this concept can be applied to self-improvement in general, which I will also speak about later. Anyway, that's where the 2-minute rule comes in. It's quite simple, really. It means that any new habit or change in your life that you adopt should only take you 2 minutes to carry out at a time when you are just starting. For example, you want to clean up your messy room and keep it from becoming messy in the future? Start by cleaning for 2 minutes every day. Or maybe there's too much trash building up at home. Only take out as much trash as you can in 2 minutes. You need to study more? Start with 2 minutes every day. Perhaps your goal is to start running to lose weight. Then start with 2 minutes every day, and so on and so forth. The point is to make it easy at the start. If it feels hard or bothersome, the chances are that you will fall prey to procrastination and not do it at all. And I think we can all agree that doing something you should do for 2 minutes is better than not at all, right? You must also refrain from doing more than 2 minutes at the start, even if it's easy. This is because you may be motivated at the moment, but what about 15 minutes later? Or 1 hour later? Or what if you can keep it going for a week, but then you just run out of steam? And then when you think back to it the next day, you don't remember an easy 2 minutes, but rather a whole hour of pain in the butt, which may make it even harder for you to do it again next time. Honestly, I have had many times in my life when I got excited about doing something, spent a few hours doing it, maybe the same on the next 2 days, but then eventually just ran out of steam for whatever reason. That's what we want to avoid here. Remember, the first key part is to make it easy to get started. Then comes the second key part, consistency. You have to stay consistent by doing whatever thing you want to do every day. Only after a number of days should you start to gradually, and I mean gradually, or you may get overwhelmed by a stark increase in difficulty, increase the duration. For example, from 2 minutes to 3 and then to 4 or 5. On a side note, if you do your thing once a day, it will probably take you a few weeks to make a new habit stick. But don't worry, I have a pro tip for you. Do your thing several times a day to shorten this time. Just stick to 2 minutes each time and don't do it when it's unnatural to do so. For example, wash your hands before each meal and not after. Just don't overdo it. As I mentioned earlier, while the author devised it specifically for habits, you can apply this rule to things other than habits. For example, you want to start working out, but you don't want to do it every day? Then go to a gym for 2 minutes on those days you will want to train in the future, such as, I don't know, Mondays and Thursdays, whatever. Then you can increase the duration. Another example would be, for example, trying to better control your temper. The next time some asshole annoys you, just be patient for 2 minutes. After you endure this much, you can stop holding back and give them a piece of your mind. I'm not telling you to kick someone's butt here, okay? Of course, the 2 minutes quote unquote part is somewhat arbitrary. You don't have to rigidly stick to 2 minutes every time you use this method. You can just make it 20 seconds or a minute. It really depends on what you are dealing with. After all, there's no point in doing 2 minutes of something you can do in 1 minute every day, right? On a side note, you can also replace duration with a number of items or instances. For example, start by reading only one book of self-improvement books a day, throwing out only one of several trash cans a day, or holding back your emotions only once per day. You don't have to rigidly stick to minutes or whatever. Okay, that's the theory. Now let's talk about my experience with using this method. The 2 minute rule is quite good to get started when procrastination is stopping you. After all, you just have to do the annoying thing for 2 minutes and then you can go back to your phone, TV, computer, book, music, easier task at your job, or whatever else you were using to procrastinate. After you get used to this, you just start to slowly increase the duration of the bothersome thing in the coming days, and as you get used to it, it becomes less and less bothersome. One of the reasons why it works is that it makes things normal to you. You can go from never doing something and thinking you would never do that sort of thing to gradually getting used to it, as you will have plenty of memories of you doing it, even if only for 2 minutes at a time, which is another concept I will refer to in the future. It takes some patience to carry out this method, but taking things slow is more important than you think. I have had many occasions in the past when I did something for a few days or a few weeks and then just lost motivation and stopped. The very point here is to keep doing something until it becomes habitual and easy, so that you don't need to master effort and motivation to do it anymore. To drive this point home, I'll bring up a few examples of such habitual and automatic actions. When you go into your room when it's dark, you subconsciously turn the light on, right? You don't even have to look at the switch or look for it. You just know where it is and automatically turn it on. Unless you have just moved in, you don't even have to think about it. After all, if it's a new room, then you will have to, so to say, memorize the location of the switch again. But otherwise, you just don't. You just do it. Another example may be putting on your clothes after you get up from bed in the morning, or making a coffee before you go to work, or turning off the tap when you are done washing your hands. While the things you will apply the 2 minute rule to will obviously be more than that, the concept is the same. As I mentioned, you can apply this rule to anything. In my case, I confirmed it works for getting my butt moving to work on something or study, and I also use it with other self-improvement techniques I will review in the future on this channel. However, I also noticed that it's easy to stop using it if the thing you are dealing with stops mattering to you. In my case, it was studying. I was studying a foreign language, and then ChatGPT came out soon after, making it a waste of effort, especially given my other priorities. When I no longer wanted to study, it was very easy to stop, though I did remember about it for a while. The best this concept worked in my experience was to help me get started on things. For example, if I can't be bothered to do something, I'll just do it for a minute or two first. Then I can decide to quit or keep doing. It's much easier to continue this way. However, no pressure. You can just quit at that timing, I mean after that 1 or 2 minutes, because if you don't give yourself this freedom, then it will be much harder to do the same next time. The method just will stop working. I'm not a nerd, so I don't want to come up with some random numbers to grade this technique. Let me just give you an overall opinion, starting from strengths and weaknesses. So, the strengths. This technique is effective at dealing with procrastination, especially if you just can't seem to get started. It's also a good method to develop consistency, and it's great for creating beneficial habits and removing harmful habits. It also has a wide array of possible applications. Finally, it is a viable method to make very difficult tasks easy, as you start from a dumbed down version of the task and gradually scale up the difficulty or duration. Now, regarding the weaknesses, this method unfortunately takes time to show effects. As such, it also requires patience. Finally, if you try to use it for many things at once, it's easy to get confused or overwhelmed. Overall, it's a pretty good technique you can get notable results with. It's very good to make lasting changes in your life, though you may need some memos or reminders until you remember to stick with the new changes every day. It gets even worse if your changes aren't supposed to take place every day, but say every second day or third day or whatever. On the other hand, it's not a good method if you need to change things immediately, or if you are simply an impatient person. These negatives make it especially problematic if you want to introduce multiple changes in your life, because things get significantly harder and more complex. Though you can mitigate that somewhat by writing down some kind of schedule or using an app that helps with tracking tasks, for example. Do I recommend this technique? Yes, why not? However, the more you want to achieve in your self-improvement journey, the more you will need other techniques to carry you forward. In my opinion, this one won't cut it. At least it wasn't good enough for me to build my self-improvement plans around it. Additionally, while it's not something that most people will have trouble with, automating your behavior may strip you of some flexibility, which may be more useful in some situations. I hope you enjoyed and perhaps learned from my review. Thank you for watching. I will continue to review self-improvement concepts and methods, so if you are interested in seeing more in the future, then please be a good boy or good girl and like and subscribe. I also invite anyone who has had experience with the 2-minute rule to share their impressions in the comments, be they positive or negative. At the end, a fun fact: I procrastinated when making this video, and I used the 2-minute rule to deal with it. Well, to be honest, it let me get started, but I needed to get my butt in gear to actually finish it, which goes to show that this technique isn't omnipotent. So unless all you want is to change your everyday habits, you will need something more than the 2-minute rule. But fret not, I will cover more potent methods in the future.